Hello.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, welcome back to the Drummers Education Connection. We are here every Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time, bringing you content related to drumming, instruction, music, life, pizza, all important things. We are here today with a new friend of ours, Mike Packer. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Mike's here from Southern California, and we're going to talk to him about a new book series he has been involved with and has out on Hudson Music, and we're going to talk to him about some other projects that he's involved in as well. Before we do a couple of house cleaning things. As always, we have a Patreon page. If you support what we're doing and help us bring on great guests like Mike and other drummers and industry people, you can click the link in the comments. And we also have things we're giving away. If you become a Patreon supporter, you can get some of our books, which are really, really great. It's the truth. And yeah. Okay. Also, we like to start out our show with a little segment we call Good Things. And this is just a chance for us to check in with each other and hear what one another has going on in our lives that's good. Can be music related, could be you had a really nice walk with your dog this morning. But give us just a minute or two about what's going on for you guys. It's going well. Mike, let's start with you today.
Sure. Well, I did have a good hike with my dog this morning, but I'll choose something else. I guess, and I know I told you guys before we hit the air, my football team made it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I have to apologize to everybody. I was at the game and my voice is still super hoarse. I'm not sick. So go Niners, and that's my good thing.
That's a good one. Chip, how about you?
Hey, man, I just got back from the Grand Canyon. For the first time, I got to go to the Grand Canyon, and we took a train up to from Williams to the Grand Canyon and back. And on the way back on the train, we got robbed. And so that was fantastic. I really appreciate that. We gave the Cowboys $1, and it was all right. We had a great time.
Wow.
Was it at gunpoint?
Yes.
Oh, he's smiling. I love it.
It was fun, man. It was really cool that the horses were chasing the train and they got in front and they slowed the train down. They did it all the way up.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Very cool.
Oh,
Rick, how about you?
you know, I had a great time at the NAMM show in Anaheim. First time back since COVID. And it was wonderful to see a lot of old friends. Bart and I got to hang out together.
Nice.
And it was just a great hang and very educational too. There's a lot of great seminars, a lot on developing your social media, and there was great concerts. And I'm just bummed that I didn't get to meet Mike because we weren't there on the same days. But it was a wonderful time. So go to it, dear folks.
And yourself, Bart?
You know what? Same thing as Rick. Had a great time at the NAMM show. Was great hanging with Rick. We had a nice time. Talked to Joe Bergamini a little bit. Talked to Chris Brady, the people at Aquarian. Just did the normal NAMM thing. I made an announcement yesterday. I know a lot of everybody knows me as a drummer for the Sam Morrison band. Been with that band for 24 years. But my side project, The Ruins, I've been working on a recording contract and just finally got announced yesterday that we signed a 3-album deal, and we were really excited about that. They're picking up the debut album Scavenger. It's more of a heavy metal thing, right? But they picked up the debut album as the first album, and plus all the singles we've released. So we're really excited about that. And didn't go on a walk with the dogs this morning. However, my wife and I have birds as well, and I was walking out here before we went on the air. My bird Peaches, a cockatiel, she decided that she wanted to come see me, so she flew down the hallway to say hello to me. So that made me feel good that my bird flew and said hi to me. So those are the good things happening in my life, man. So Jeremy, what about you?
What you're trying to say is your wife gave you the bird this morning?
She pretty much every morning. Yeah. She's like, hey, Bart's here. Great.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Look at that, Rick. Look at those funny looking dudes.
Bart, you look like a star.
By the way, Bart is a rock star.
He is a rock star.
That is exactly right. exactly right.
I had I can't remember if I told you guys about this last week, but just about 10 days ago, I had an album release show for a brand new album with one of my groups, Mophone, trio of 2 saxophones and drums. It's our 4th record. We've been at Monterey Jazz Festival several times, San Francisco Jazz Festival, and super excited. Brand new album, all original compositions. We had a sold out show. It was super, super great, and so grateful for everybody being part of the community to support. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to a cross country trip with my son for his college auditions. So really, really excited.
Wow.
Yeah, we're flying to Chicago and Ohio and Baltimore and New York, and he's going to audition in person for his jazz piano program. So really, really excited about that.
Very
Rick,
cool.
you realize that mophone sounds like a swear.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
MO''FONE. Anyway, okay.
And Jeremy, who's the rock star now? You, dude. You got a new album out. You play in Monterey Jazz Festival. Come on, man. That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome. Way to go.
Jazz stars don't shine as bright as rock stars, quite. I'm just messing. All right.
Yeah, but you know how to play. I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I got a pad on the snare drum. That's all I got.
Oh man. Oh boy. Mike, we're delighted to have you on the show joining us today. Thank you for coming. And we want to talk to you to start. There's a lot of stuff to get into. We want to start by talking about this new book series that you just released on Hudson Music. It's called Playing Techniques, and it's a series of books. It's 4 different books. And these are things that you were very heavily and closely involved with putting together with the late Ralph Humphrey and also Joe Porcaro. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So how did you connect with these guys? Did you know them from a long time ago, or they approached you about this?
Yeah. So Ralph was a mentor of mine for probably about 30 years. So when I moved out to LA in 92, I knew that I needed to continue my studies on drum set specifically. So I took some lessons with some guys and was really looking for that one person that could kind of, see me through and just, really kind of take me under their wing. So I ended up calling Ralph, and we connected and, got along really well. So I studied with him for about 2.5 years. And then, Ralph and Joe were teaching at Musicians Institute at that time. They ended up leaving in 95, and they joined a new school that was starting called the LA Music Academy, LAMA. And so Ralph and Joe, ran the drum department there. They brought me in to teach their curriculum. So that's kind of the beginning of how I got involved with both of them. But then I was at the school with them for 22 years. First as just an instructor for about the first 10 years. And then I actually joined the administration about 10 years in, and I was teaching and doing administrative stuff as well. So through that time, one of the core series of classes for the curriculum was called Playing Techniques. And Ralph taught it and wrote it primarily, but for the whole curriculum at the school, Ralph and Joe obviously shared everything 50-50. So their name was on everything. And, that was the cornerstone group of courses. I was actually fortunate enough to contribute all the bass drum technique curriculum into that course. But then Ralph did all the hand motion and the vocabulary development and all that good stuff. Great course. It's incredible.
And comprehensive. I mean, I didn't go through it, but I skimmed through it in preparation for today. And not only, many people who think, oh, another drum book, but this is something a little different. It's got video modules built in, and there's video clips of Ralph talking about the technique that you need to use. And I didn't watch them all, but I watched enough of them to know that it was really, really helpful to have that extra piece.
Yeah, it's, the courses and the books themselves are incredible because they deal with obviously, hand and foot motion, but obviously vocabulary development, independence, coordination, interdependence. ostinato development, all this stuff. And it really kind of highlights Ralph's genius of how to take all of those necessary elements that we all need and how to put them all together and pace them in a way that's really practical and appropriate for the drummer. The other thing too that's really cool about it is it's very structured, but it gives you a lot of room for freedom and exploration. And that's one of the things that I loved when I was studying privately with him, is that, you know, it was structured, but I could take it a million different places. And so I think that's why a lot of the graduates that came out of that school that, you know, have professional careers now, none of them sound the same. They all went through the material, but they're all super individual. And I think that's something that's really cool about it. And then two, you mentioned the videos. Ralph did, I think, just short of 175 video demonstrations. For the book. So it's really like you're sitting in class with him. And you know, at that time, unfortunately, he had been diagnosed with cancer, so he was going through cancer treatment for the year and a half that we were doing this project. And you could see it kind of in his appearance and you could hear it in his voice, but man, he just played his butt off. And, you know, the way he presented the material and how he demonstrated it was just, it's incredible, I think.
And would you say, is this course geared to a certain level of player? Can you start as a complete beginner?
Yeah, absolutely. You can start at beginner. You know, at the school, it was interesting. We always had, you know, intermediate and advanced students come to us to study, but everybody always had some holes in their playing or their knowledge, right? And we all, as educators, we see that every day, right? So it's designed to start at the beginning to fill those holes. So most of the time, that first quarter was just, you know, kind of addressing all of those things, and then everybody could shoot up from there. So the book series is exactly the same way. So whether you're an instructor and you have beginner students, or if you're already a pro player and you want to go back and look at some things, it's really for everybody.
You know, Mike, that was, you know, I was joking a minute ago when I played the rock groove, but that was the thing that I liked so much about Ralph when I studied with him. You and I discussed off air that, you know, we had shared that in common, that right away from the very first lesson, I went to him to study Moeller, right? And then we got into playing, and immediately he saw, I mean, without even saying anything to me, he saw the holes, right? So he gave me, I think it was supplement 5. Okay. He goes, here, take this home and practice it.
Vitamin B6, B5.
Yeah, exactly. And take it home and practice it. And he showed me the molar motion and stuff. And at first, I remember walking away from it thinking, well, why does he have me doing this? I wanted to do something else. So he saw it without saying anything. It became very evident very quickly to me that he saw something where I needed to work on that. And without saying anything, he steered me in the right direction. And I always have said that he was the best drum teacher I ever had. Did you find that with him as well, where like he wouldn't even say anything? He was just like, okay, you know, Mike needs to work on this. And he kind of nudged you in that direction without saying anything.
Oh yeah. Every lesson, it was something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I went to him pretty much for Moeller as well. At least that's where we started.
Right. Yeah.
It was Moeller and it was technique, and then odd meter studies. And obviously, you know, he's kind of the godfather of odd meter pedagogy, with even in the odds, and,
even in the odds, yeah.
the stuff that he's written. And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but when you have the opportunity to study with the person who wrote the book, it's incredible. And you know, being able to go through that with him, I got so many more insights that I would not have gotten either studying with somebody else or trying to tackle it on my own. So those were the two things that we focused on. And I remember one thing specifically where, you know, we would sit side by side and he would play a Moeller stroke, and the sound of his stroke was so big, it was like as big as the back wall. And I would do the same
I
thing.
remember that.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, and it just sounded this big. And it's like,
Mhm.
how is that possible? What's going on? So then obviously we got into other mechanics and, you know, how to draw out sound quality and how to get the fundamentals of the drum to speak and all of that stuff. So it got much further than just motion stuff. The other thing that I loved too was, are you guys familiar with the John Wooten book? I think it's the Rudimental Drummer's Reference book.
I've heard of it.
It's
I'm
incredible.
not.
Yeah, it's great. Ralph was really big at the time into taking that book and putting it on the drum set and taking the exercises and orchestrating them around. So all of the technique studies that we were talking about applied to that, which was cool. But then I would throw ostinatos in my feet and play those on the bottom and then reorchestrate everything. So it's like, you know, I was taking his method, but then we were going even different ways from where he was presenting it to me, which was really cool.
You know,
Hey, guys.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to break in real quick and say hi to Rob Wallace, who's watching, and Jim
Hey, Rob.
Royal. And Kevin Lehman has a comment, Mike. He said, can't thank Mike enough for putting this material together. Eternally grateful to have his inspiration material available for everybody. The amount of time Mike put into this is unbelievable. To get Ralph on video for all the lessons is priceless. Kudos to you, Mike, and thanks to Rob Wallace for giving this material such a great home. Thanks, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kevin. Thanks,
And,
Kevin.
you know, Kevin is he was part of our first class at Llama in '96. And so, you know, I've known Kevin for many years. Great guy, great teacher, great drummer. And I also have to give him kudos because he was part of the team that worked on this material. He proofread everything. And then, of course, the great Joe Bergamini was our senior editor. And, you know, Rob, of course, this really was the only home for this project. Rob is the best at what he does and really understood that the importance of this. And, you know, it's really a legacy piece for Ralph and Joe.
Yeah.
And that's the reason
great.
why it needed to come out.
Yeah.
That's
That's
Mike,
incredible.
Hey,
I
Mike,
have a
real
question.
quick, can you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was
Chip.
just going to ask you real quick. Could you tell any new, younger viewers who was Ralph Humphrey?
Sure, great, and that's a great question. As a player, Ralph was in Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. He also played for years with Al Jarreau and Wayne Shorter and Manhattan Transfer and a group called Free Flight. But it, you know, Ralph, he was an incredible player, but at his core, he was a teacher and a mentor. And he taught and mentored literally thousands of drummers at MI, at Llama, and now the Los Angeles College of Music, and then and then people studying privately with him as well. It's funny. I have a story that I tell. My first lesson, Ralph asked me who some of my favorite drummers were or are. And I didn't want to say the typical Tony Williams, Vinnie Colaiuta, Peter Erskine, which all would have been true. So I said Carlos Vega and Graham Lear. Carlos Vega was an incredible studio player in town and played with James Taylor. And Graham Lear was the drummer for Santana at the time. And Ralph just started cracking up. He said, well, both of those guys studied with me. So they're in the right.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that's who Ralph was. Ralph also had a great career in the studios playing. I don't know if you guys are hip to like Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and The Simpsons and all of those animated shows, but he played on all of those sessions.
He did Star Trek too.
Did Star Trek. He was in the house band on the Oscars and the Emmys. He did Dancing with the Stars for I think like 10 years. He even did the first season of American Idol.
I was with him I studied with him when he was during the time where he was on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, cool.
And
yeah. So he had an incredibly well-rounded career.
Yeah, he really did.
Sounds like
really
he
did.
inspired a lot of drummers.
He really did.
Well, and thanks to you and Rob and all the guys at Hudson, now his pedagogical method is available to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. What a beautiful thing. I'm can't wait to check it out.
Yeah,
So
that's.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
So many of our listeners are our students and people who are new to drumming. So we've talked a lot about molar technique.
Mhm.
So can you briefly explain what molar technique is and why it's important?
Sure. It originated from a drummer and an educator named Sanford Moeller, I believe in the 1800s, 1880s, something like that.
correct.
And he was a snare drum player in a military band, and the drums hung at an angle like this. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Bart. And so to play the drum and play accents, he would use his whole arm and use a whipping motion to play this way on the drum to get those accents to speak. So it really kind of started from the shoulder, came up, and then came down. And if you look at, I mean, many of, if not all of the drum set players who are playing now, whether they know it or not, everybody's using that motion because it's so natural. And
Keith Carlock's a guy, I don't mean to interrupt you. Keith
Sure.
Carlock, I think, is a great guy to kind of point to, because his motion is just, and the way he has his drums set up and he kind of throws the sticks. I love watching him play. Just love watching him play. Fantastic drummer.
Keith is incredible because he embodies that motion, but he also embodies rebound and letting the stick do the work for you and letting it breathe. Steve Smith is another one, I think, in that world.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, you look at those guys play, and I think it's just a work of art, honestly.
It looks effortless.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Steve Smith is like, like the Michelangelo of living drummers. I mean, he really is such an artist, you know, and his molar strokes are just, it's just amazing to watch him play. Love him. Anyway, back to you. Sorry.
Agree.
Mike, you're starting with the shoulder, and then you were.
Yeah. So starting with the shoulder, lifting up, and then when you lift up, your elbow comes out a bit, and then your wrist and your hand are actually pointing down. So if you had a stick in your hand, the tip of the stick would actually be pointing towards the head. And then you come up, and then you let the stick rotate, and then it comes down. So actually, if I have a stick, it would look something like this.
Yes.
Now, I kind of do something a little bit different most of the time, which I call more of a modified molar stroke. So instead of thinking about it coming from the shoulder or the elbow coming out, I actually think of it more from just lifting the wrist and having it come up here, which kind of condenses the motion.
Right.
And what it does to the elbow, I don't know if you can see it really well here, but what it does to the elbow is instead of kicking it out, it actually kicks it forward. I guess if I do it here, it comes forward and then down. And what I found there is that I can do a smaller motion and still get the impact and the power of the accent without using so much motion.
And the efficiency that the stroke provides, right? So my understanding is that part of what the sort of intelligent design, if you will, behind the molar stroke is that you end up recruiting more muscles so that you're not overloading the same muscle group by doing the same motion every time. And so you're sort of splitting the load.
Totally. Yeah. And the other benefit to it, I think, is that when you're doing it, you're actually filling the space in between the notes, right? And when you do that, your time and your rhythmic accuracy is better. Because it's like if I was going and 1 and 2 and 3, as opposed to 1, 2.
Yeah.
It's like there's a plan, and there's I'm filling that space evenly so that when I make the actual stroke, it's more in time, and I'm feeling the time in between.
Yeah.
So
you're thinking about the note before the note, or the note on the way to the note.
Daniel,
Exactly.
Daniel Glass likes to say that it's all about the up, meaning
Yeah.
what
Right.
happens in between the strokes is actually what determines what happens when you make the strike.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Same concept.
And I remember Ralph one time saying that the byproduct of the motion is the note.
Right.
He
Yeah.
said, the hitting the drum, he told me one time, he said, is almost, he goes, that's almost irrelevant. It's the motion on the way to the drum. And then what happens after you hit the drum, whether you, and to correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, you control the stick or you allow the stick to come up and then you put it back in with the wrist. Am I correct in the way I'm explaining that?
Yeah. If you like in your example there, if you wanted to get 2 accents in a row, the
Right.
first one would be molar, and then instead of keeping the stick down, you let it rebound up,
Right.
and then with your wrist you play the second one. So it's boom, boom. And he definitely talks about that a lot in playing techniques and demonstrates that a lot. And it's incredible because when you do it that way and you really utilize that rebound, it's almost effortless to play those 2 notes in a row, and as opposed to really trying to muscle it out.
Right.
Yeah.
It just happens, as you
I'm
said, Bart.
glad you guys did those videos, man. That's cool that you have video of Ralph actually demonstrating that.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's on the Hudson digital bookstore.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Book,
yeah.
put
And
the link in the comments.
yeah,
Yep.
and the books are out digital as ebooks, and they're also out as hard copy as well.
Cool. Mike, would you, in the motion, let's say, like and I like what you said, not only about Ralph, but what you just demonstrated, how you move the elbow more forward as opposed to out.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, let's say your accent pattern is, like we just said, okay, so let's call that a wrist, or I mean a whip, and this one a wrist, right?
Yeah.
So pop, pop. Do you find that just your motion around the kit is easier, or it flows more, it's more fluid around the kit because of the whip, the stick comes up, and then you can, with the elbow motion as you describe it, you're moving to the other instrument? Does that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's as far as flow around the kit, that's everything.
Right.
And you watch guys like Weckl play and Steve
Mhm.
Smith, and we're going back to the same guys, but if you watch them in their flow around the drum set, it's all about that motion and letting the stick rebound and utilizing that rebound to orchestrate wherever you want to orchestrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love that you've put this together. I love that it's out there for the community at large. Most students who come in and take lessons, they want to learn to play music, they want to rock out, or they want to swing maybe, and it's all about they in their minds, it's overwhelming, but it's all about patterns and coordination and you get when you watch the really really top drummers in the world play, you realize that there's so much else going on. There's so much kind of work that they've done digging into just the fundamentals of how they move, right?
Yep.
I mean, drumming is motions, right? Coordinated motions. And it's so easy to sort of lose sight of that perspective a little bit when you're thinking about patterns and coordination and exercises. But boy, this can get you started on the right track with really good habits right off the bat as a beginner. And I think it's just really great.
Well
Yeah.
said, Jeremy. Well
Yeah,
said.
totally agree, Jeremy.
I wish this was around when I was starting.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. It saved a lot of time.
Now, one of the things, I'll tell a quick Ralph story, and then I'll ask my question. I remember you were talking about the stroke that that Ralph would play, and it sounded as big as the wall.
Mhm.
I remember one time, and I wish I could remember what we were working on, but he was demonstrating something, and he sat down at the kit, and he played the simplest, back in black. I mean, that's what he played. And I'm standing behind him going, how do you make it sound that good? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, it's simplicity and it's perfect. How how do you do that? And I think for me, my time with Ralph, that's what I've always kind of been chasing. How do I do that? How do I take something that simple and make it sound good? So my question,
Mhm.
how, Mike, have you been able in your own way to find that within you because of his lessons? Have you been able to, oh, there's what I was looking for when he made that note as big as the wall? Have you been able to do that?
I think so to a degree.
Hmm.
Um, I've definitely had some aha moments along the way
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's like, oh, I get it. I remember actually when I was studying with him, I was practicing on a pad, and we were doing molar, and I think I was struggling with actually controlling the stick really low, because one of the things that we worked on was, accents are up here but taps are down here,
Yeah.
and you really want to have control of both and not play so much stuff here in the middle
Right.
unless you really intend to,
Right.
because that's what cleans you up, right? That makes you more articulate on the kit, and whatever vocabulary you're trying to get out, that's how it comes out cleanly.
Mhm.
And I was doing some flams, and I played one once, and I played the whip, and it was like, it's like if you hit a golf ball right for one time. It's like,
Yes.
oh, I get it. That's
Really?
how
I,
it was. It
I,
was the same thing.
I'm a golfer, and I've been thinking about golf the whole episode.
We
I
would
thought,
have a really interesting lunch together.
yeah, totally.
Jeremy, you're always thinking about golf.
I can't help it, man. It's an affliction.
I must be Jeremy. You thinking about golf right now?
What? Right now, actually, just now I was thinking about drums.
Jeremy's a
Thing.
golfer
Same
and
thing.
a drummer, so he's a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, what do you do for fun?
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
I think
I go to therapy.
one of the points I would say to good drumming, and we could all, I'm sure, all agree on this, it's the dynamics. Drumming is not just this big, loud, bam, bam, bam thing, even though on the video on MTV, it used to look that way. Like, it's not, it's soft notes and it's loud notes. And looking through this curriculum, I'm so impressed because it really dives into those tap strokes, the full strokes, getting all of that soft and loud, and really how to do that. And so that is just so super exciting to see that. And
And
I think that's going to help prevent injuries too.
Yep.
and there's 4 books in this series. Playing Techniques book 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can get them as a bundle as well, according to the website.
Right. Yeah. Check them
Very
out on
cool.
hudsonmusic.com. Hudson Music, the place to go for drum educational resources and materials, books galore, videos, all different kinds. They have some t-shirts out now, but Bart's book is on there. He just put out. My book is on there. Mike's books are on there. Rick's books may be coming out on there soon. I'm not sure if that's happening or not. Mike, I want to ask you about your other curriculum that you yourself have authored. Can you tell us about, is it the drum channel method?
Yeah. So I have a series that's on Hudson as well, just as ebooks right now, called the Drum Channel Method. And I was commissioned to write a drum curriculum by a college in China, actually, called the Beijing Contemporary Music Academy.
Oh, wow.
And they basically said, just soup to nuts, go wild and do it. Write the curriculum that you want. And the only stipulation they gave me is that they wanted 10 books. So I wrote 10 books, but they wanted 6 play-alongs at the end of each book. And so
Okay.
it was cool because, typically when we write a book, it's a technique thing or it's a this or a that, and it's 1 or 2 topics. But with this, what I did is I used the play-alongs at the end of each book as kind of my outcomes. So everything in the book contains the information that you need to play the play-alongs. So
Oh,
whether that's technical, vocabulary, groove, reading, all of it, it's all included so that by the time you get to the charts in the back of the book, you're prepared to play them. And so I did that. I don't speak Chinese or write Chinese, so I did it in English. I sent it over to them, and then they translated it. But I retained the rights to use it in English.
Oh,
So
cool.
I worked with Don Lombardi because I shot video for all of it. So there's over 250 video demonstrations and 60 play-alongs with the books.
Oh my God.
So we
Wow.
took that curriculum and put it into 4 books for the drum channel method that are out on Hudson. And they're also as courses on Drum Channel. And I'll be actually teaching live courses of this material on Drum Channel starting probably in April. So it'll be like structured like a Berkeley Online course where you have all the material, and then once a week there's an actual lecture with the instructor.
Wow, Mike,
That's awesome.
A massive,
That's
That's
incredible.
also a video.
yeah. But God, I mean, I can just, putting one book out takes a ton of work. Putting 10 books out, holy crap! Like,
Yeah.
what a labor of love more than anything, right?
Yeah, that's a very good way to do it. And actually, I was insane because I was working a 40-hour job. I was getting my master's and I was doing these books at the same time. And looking back on it now, I'm like, how the hell did I do it? But
Yeah.
I made it through, working, obviously a lot of nights and weekends on it, and gigging too. But being asked to write your own curriculum and you can envision it that way and create the play-alongs and do it all soup to nuts was really, really fun. It was a ton of work, but
That
it
must
was
have been fulfilling
fun.
when you got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Well,
was really fulfilling.
It's a big responsibility too. I mean, like
Yeah.
you've got a whole potential generation of drummers there sort of in your hands, right? What are you going to offer them to help them get to the place where you imagine they want to go?
Right.
Right.
Well, fortunately I had great teachers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I studied great curriculum. And alongside Ralph, I took a handful of lessons with Peter Erskine. I studied with Jeff Hamilton for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
Wow.
And then I studied with a guy named Carl Tassi, who is maybe lesser known, but he was a Freddie Gruber alumnus.
Oh, okay.
I studied Freddie's method through him for about 1 year. So I had a lot of great material and great method stuff to draw from when I was putting all of this together. And, I feel like I'm sure all of us do, that it's our job and it's our responsibility to pay it forward. And all of the information that I have accumulated and I have figured out myself, it needs to be passed on to whoever's interested. And so, I'm super passionate about that. I'm super passionate about creating access to education. And Ralph was that way too, which is another reason why we did the playing technique books while he was, terminally ill. Everybody should have an opportunity to study this material. And so it was a labor of love, but it needed to be done. And that's kind of
amazing how all roads, when it comes to Moeller, lead to Freddie Gruber, Dom Fumulero, and Ralph Humphrey. And I think that
Chapin.
Yeah. Oh, totally, Chapin. Yeah. I mean, that's so I think that one of the things that you said, Mike, that I would say to any young drummer that sees this, you hit the nail on the head with something you said. You work so hard and you're doing a 40-hour job and doing gigs and writing and blah, blah, blah. You're just going like crazy. So there's a huge work ethic there. But at the same time, you said, I had fun doing it. And I think that's the thing that when you first get into music, like Jeremy had said, I'd echo what he said too, is you're really getting into the nuts and bolts of this stuff. So it's a really deep dive. But if you love it, you're going to have fun at it. I mean, right? I mean, you have to have fun at it.
Oh yeah, 100%. If it's not fun, why are you doing it?
Exactly. Yeah.
First of all, and second of all, really the fun is, I mean, I enjoyed practicing, I enjoyed all of that stuff, but maybe I'm a glutton for punishment. The real fun is playing with other musicians. It's playing
Right.
music. It's playing gigs. It's
Yeah.
like, technique is not the end. Technique is a means to the end.
Means,
End
absolutely.
is playing music. And so, all of the stuff that we do alone in our practice rooms, that's only in support of what
Mhm.
we're able to do when we're actually creating with other musicians.
Well said.
Yeah.
So
And
you're learning how to swing the club so you can get on the golf course.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I can't do. It sounds like Jeremy's got it, but I definitely can't do that.
Man, it's always a work in progress, just like drumming.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now you said something before we got on. I gotta jump over to this lane now. You said you have a pedal out. What's up with the pedal? Can you show it? Do you have one there? Tell us about your pedal.
Yeah. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Look at that kit. Look at those kits. There's
Hey, you know what I was gonna ask him if he's in his living room, and any living room with 2 drum sets in it, that's the way to live right there. That's living right there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches at the moment. The kit, the black one there is actually Ralph's family gave it to me.
Oh,
No way.
Yeah, it was
Oh
it
my
was his maple
God.
custom that I saw him doing a gazillion gigs in town on. So I was, they ended up giving it to me. So
oh,
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
he's
What an
sitting over my
incredible
shoulder.
gift.
He's sitting over my shoulder every day, telling me to keep my taps down. I'm sure.
Nice.
And then that one's my DW,
There you go.
which again is gorgeous. So I'm super fortunate. But this
Wow.
is my pedal.
Okay.
It's called a DW 5000 heelless pedal.
Oh.
So it's a normal pedal. It's got it's a normal 5000. The only difference is there's no heel plate.
Is that the pedal that was in Ralph's studio when he lived over in Studio City?
Yeah, actually,
I've played that pedal.
Yeah, it was actually the pedal you played was a prototype that I gave to him.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what,
I remember that now. And he goes, "Yeah, one of my students is working on this." And dude, that is that's awesome.
what's the concept behind it, Mike?
So the concept is, well, if we go back to Moeller, right, and Moeller with the hands, when you do a full stroke, you want the drum to sing, and you want to access the low foundations of the instrument. Imagine if you had a table in front of you, and you do your Moeller stroke, and it stops you before you actually do the full stroke, right? So you could hit the drum, the stick hits the drum, but you don't get to do the full stroke. That's essentially what a heel plate does, in my opinion. If I do a Moeller stroke with my foot, I can't. Sorry, this is so weird because it's backwards. I can't come all the way down to the ground. So what I wanted to do was eliminate that foot plate or the heel plate so that my heel could come down to the ground, which gave me about that much more stroke. And it's hilarious. I did prototypes, and I took a prototype on a gig that I was doing, which was my normal gig at the time, and a rock gig. And the sound guy literally had to back off the gain on my bass drum by 50%.
Wow.
It got that much more power.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it opened up everything. So what I did is I did the prototypes. I got it patent. I put in the patent application, so it was patent pending. And then I went to Don Lombardi and Rich Secra at DW, and they were interested, but they ended up actually passing on it. And I was super stubborn. So I said, what if I take 10 of these prototypes to Pro Drum and they sell them? What would you think about that then? And they're like, if you sell them, then we'll talk. So I did, and Stan and Jerry at Pro Drum were incredible and let me put the pedals in there, and they all sold. So then I went back to Don, and he's like, okay, let's do it. We'll license it.
Cool.
So that's how it came about. It's done okay. Not a ton of people know about it because I think with pedals, there's not a lot of people know the ins and outs of bass drum technique and pedagogy and I mean it's better now, but especially in the 90s, 2000s, it wasn't as widely known as like hand technique and stuff.
Mhm.
And with bass drum pedals, it was more of you go to the store, you play a bunch of pedals, you find the one you like and you buy it.
Right.
It's not necessarily, you don't necessarily know why you like it or why it
Mhm.
feels great to you, but it's just the one. So you do that. And so if the pedal is not at a point of purchase, like a Guitar Center or a Sam Ash or places like that, I think it's going to affect the ability to have a lot of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So we never got a skew in those stores. And so I think that affected it a bit. But usually everybody that tries it out gets it and gets the concept and seems to really like it.
Hey, Mike, our friend Fred Fisher's watching. He's dying to know, is there a double pedal version of that pedal?
Yep, double
And
pedal.
where can you get that?
Right on DW, or
Go
at
to
any
DW, Fred.
retailer, but DW online has them.
And Mike, if you're more of a heel down player, does that work for heel down technique?
It works. I've found it works for everything. For me personally, what I play in when I teach, I always refer to the 4 primary strokes that we use on the bass drum. And that's the toe stroke, which is heel down, the leg stroke, the ankle stroke, and then the upstroke. And it's like everything is kind of built around those 4 strokes. And they all work perfectly well with a heelless pedal.
Okay.
Yeah,
What about
right on.
there's a trend now of they don't have a heel plate on them, but the long boards, right? And I remember on your pedal, it's just a standard pedal. It's a short board with the heel.
Right.
Does the long board pedal without a heel plate achieve the same thing?
I think if you have a foot the size of Shaquille O'Neal, it would.
Right.
But for most of us, it wouldn't, because your heel is still hitting the back of the pedal. It's not able to release. So you're still being obstructed by at least that much. To be honest with you, I've never been a fan of the longboard.
Okay.
Because to achieve that and to be able to drop down, you have to play too far back on the pedal to be able to actually control it.
Because I didn't know that pedal was in production, and I'm actually with Trick bass drum pedals.
Oh,
but
cool.
because of that pedal, I play pretty far back on the pedal. I play pretty far back on the board, so that I'm kind of playing out. I want the beater out. So I play like on this kit right now, my teaching kit, I've got a 9000 on there,
Cool.
and I can see the top of the 9 where my foot rests comfortably, and I can pull it off. But yeah, I play further back on the pedal because of that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. That's amazing. Wow. I'm really blown away by that. That's really cool.
Thank you. It, again, another labor of love. I mean, I never thought in my lifetime that I would be a, patent owner. But it's funny. I went to college at the University of Northern Colorado and was a music major. And after school, after I graduated, I had the idea for this, and I was back in Colorado visiting friends. And one of my friends, who was a drummer, actually went on to work in manufacturing at a shoe company, of all places, but they did like biking shoes and ski boots and things like that. So I was telling him my concept, and he goes, "Oh, I can make a CAD drawing of that for you. That's easy."
Cool.
And so
Wow.
he did that. And then I was on a gig in Chicago doing a record for a songwriting duo. And I'm telling him the idea, and one of the guys chimes in. He's like, "Well, I'm a patent attorney, so I'll handle your patent for you." I'm like, always think about the people in your network, because you have no idea.
Networking.
Who's
networking is, I mean, Rick and I were talking about that the other day at the NAMM show. I mean, networking, I mean, think about it. That's what we're doing right here. And I recently wrote an article for my my blog that I do, and it was on the importance of community. And again, that's what we're doing here. And my point is that I think that you never, like you said, you never thought you'd be a patent owner, but you don't know where music and drumming is going to take you. And as a young musician, as a young drummer that might be watching this, make sure that you do network. Don't be afraid to talk about what you're doing, because that's a perfect example. I mean, that's incredible, Mike. That's so fantastic that that's happened for you.
Yeah, I always tell students that your career path is not going to be a linear line.
Yeah.
It's always going to go like this,
Yep.
and you never know where things are going to lead to.
Right.
And it's, I'd say, probably 99% your relationships and the people you know that are going to give you opportunities that you may not expect or plan for, but you have to be open to them and consider them. Like for me, my more day job is more business related or administrative related. I never thought that was going to be in my life at all. But when I was at the LA Music Academy and I was teaching, our president said, "You want to join the administration?" And I thought about it, and I'm like, I mean, kind of my personal goal is to make a positive impact on people's lives, and I was doing it through, teaching and all of that stuff. As an administrator, you actually do it in a different way and somewhat even a more broad way, because now I'm affecting other instrumentalists and students that I would never have had contact with. Plus, I'd never had a 2-week vacation before that was paid. So, yeah,
Wait,
sign me up.
what's that?
That was,
Yeah, right.
but it's like you have to be open to ideas like that and opportunities like that. Otherwise, you just totally limit yourself.
Mike, in the time we have left, I want to ask you about that, because in addition to teaching, and in addition to designing a bass drum pedal and putting these fantastic books out, you also are you the CEO of this other company?
Well, yeah, I guess president and founder. So I recently just started my own company called Inspire EDU that's focused on designing and distributing curriculum into K through 12 pre-apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship programs nationwide. And we're designed to do more arts, media, and entertainment pathways, which is not only music. I mean, obviously music is one of them, but it's graphic design, it's film and TV production, it's multimedia, all of the performing arts as well.
Cool.
And what we're doing is we're focusing on something called work-based learning opportunities, which is a big need for schools. And it basically kind of is the connective tissue between industry and education.
Okay.
So that, if you're a teacher in you have a class that's, let's say, studying, let's call it film production. You want to have at least 2 or 3 touch points throughout each semester where you're bringing industry in. And you're exposing your students to what it's like actually in the industry, whether it's going to a set and seeing how an actual production is done, or going to a post house or something like that. Also bringing guest speakers in, and having industry maybe assess student work, things like that.
That's cool.
So that's something that's a huge need in this. And so we're focused on that. And then also developing a teaching artist pipeline. So again, for film and TV, the school might not have a credentialed teacher who could actually teach this class. So we'll bring in an artist to teach it, and there'll be a credentialed teacher in the classroom actually running the class. Again, another big need. So plus I'm able to consult through this as well, which is great. I'm consulting currently with Drum Channel, which is a really, really fun project with Don Lombardi. So I'm allowed to do all of that, which is super cool. And then I can still teach and I can still play and do all of my other stuff too. So it's great. I have a partner in the business who founded a company called Study Smart Tutors. They are in over 200 schools and districts nationwide and have a learning management system and a sales force and everything too. So partnering with him has given me a much broader network of possibilities with this business. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot.
Again, networking.
Mike,
and
do you sleep?
I do. I definitely do. Actually, my
That's
wife
most
tells me that I
impressive
sleep
thing.
too early because I fall asleep on the couch at like 8 o'clock.
yeah.
Oh man.
She's super
Hey,
supportive.
Mike, I just got a question. I got a trick question for you. What's more important to you, inspiration or motivation?
Ooh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, just off the top of my brain, it's like one feeds the other,
Right.
right?
Right.
Without the inspiration, there would be no motivation. Inspiration by itself without motivation leads to kind of nothing.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a package deal for me, where if I'm inspired or passionate about something, usually the motivation will then follow it to hopefully jump into it and follow through.
And then to see
Right
it
on.
through, you got to throw in their determination, because there's got to be a lot of parts where you know, I can imagine on editing the stuff with Ralph Humphrey that, there had to have been like, your eyes are just bleeding watching the video, you're so tired. What about, now the stuff on Drum Channel, real quick, and maybe you answered this and I didn't hear it. Are you teaching the curriculum on Drum Channel? Are you going to be the one doing it, or somebody else play it? You are. So it's your curriculum. You're playing it. You're going to be teaching it.
Yeah, I will. And
Okay.
eventually, hopefully, knock on fake wood on my desk, that there are enough sections of students that will actually need to hire other instructors to do it as well.
Oh, okay.
But I'll definitely be teaching some of the cohorts for sure.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, Mike, want to thank you again for coming on. It's been terrific to have you. What a treat. And talk about inspiration, man. Your story is very inspiring. For those of you who haven't or just tuning in, Mike has just released the Playing Technique series on Hudson Music. These are he put together the teachings and sort of pedagogical legacy of Ralph Humphrey and Joe Procaro. Really fantastic books. Check them out on Hudson. And Mike, can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much.
An honor to be with you guys, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, man.
Excellent.
Hey, guys, next week we have none other than Billy Cobham on the show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to try not to have a Wayne's World moment. Remember that time you played on? That was so cool,
so we're super excited to talk with Billy. Tune in next week. And thanks, you guys, for being part of our community. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Rick, play us out,
play us
dude.
out.
Rick, give us the go.